Glory to Jesus Christ. This is Father Irineos with St. Andrew Orthodox Church in Liberty Hill, Texas, with the epistle reading for Monday, the 20th week after Pentecost. The epistle appointed for today is written in the Epistle of the Holy Apostle Paul to the Philippians, chapter 2, verses 12 to 16. Wherefore, my beloved, as ye have always obeyed, not as in my presence only, but now much more in my absence, work out your own salvation with fear and trembling, for it is God which worketh in you both to will and to do of his good pleasure. Do all things without murmurings and disputings, that ye may be blameless and harmless, the sons of God, without rebuke in the midst of a crooked and perverse nation, among whom ye shine as lights in the world, holding forth the word of life, that I may rejoice in the day of Christ, that I have not run in vain, neither labored in vain. The epistle to the Philippians was written by the Apostle Paul towards the end of his life, most likely when he was in captivity at Rome. Now, some scholars have suggested that perhaps Caesarea or Ephesus may have been the place where the epistle was written, but the bulk of authority tends to hold that it was in fact written at Rome as Paul approached martyrdom. And it was written to the church in Philippi, which was a church that Paul had founded, which he held in special affection. Today's epistle is one which poses great challenges to our evangelical friends because it directly confronts their conception of salvation as an instantaneous occurrence, usually tied to some external show of accepting Christ into your heart, and their concept that once this show is made, salvation is granted and is assured. But the apostle seems to suggest that there is work yet to be done, and he tells the Philippians to work out their own salvation with fear and trembling. Fear, because any time we stand before the Master, we must stand with some amount of fear. But the apostle also assures the Philippians that God is with them in this holy work. It is God which worketh in them both to will and to do his good pleasure. And this is important because it is not our pleasure. It is not what we want that we're called upon to do, but that which is the will of the Father. And we should do these things without argument, because we are called to shine as the lights in the world. This is the fruit of our faith, that we shine forth for those who have not yet seen that light. St. John Chrysostom also understands salvation very much the same way the apostle does in his epistle today. Writing in his homilies on Genesis, St. John writes, I beseech you to work out your salvation with fear and trembling, and allow the enemy no way of undermining your salvation. Remember that it drives him to distraction to see the spiritual riches you now have, and he prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking someone to devour. But if you are careful, he will, with the grace of God, wreak no harm. You see, St. John understood that the evil one, seeing a Christian taking the steps down the path to salvation, wants nothing more than to knock them off, to destroy their efforts to cause great harm. If we were to look at the Greek, and I'm sure I'm going to mess this translation up, but if we were to look at the Greek that is translated work out in that first verse, it's the word in Greek katargaso, which, although it's translated as to work out in this biblical verse, a closer translation would probably be to accomplish or to complete. And in that sense, brothers and sisters, this is wholly consistent with the Orthodox understanding of salvation. Now, we should be clear, these works that we're called on to do these fruits which we're called on to show forth from our faith. No matter how great they are, they will never on their own merit our salvation. As we stand at the time of judgment, we must rely on the grace of God. But we don't go from a point of accepting Christ to judgment with no other expectations of how our faith shows forth in our day-to-day lives. We understand salvation to be a process. We understand that man is called to work together with God to reach the point where his grace is extended to us and we are saved. We cannot be fooled into the indolence and laziness of monergism, believing that having said the words, some magic words of I accept Christ or the sinner's prayer, that we may be assured of eternal salvation. Rather, we are called to work out our salvation with fear and trembling every day. Let our faith show forth the fruits. Let us be that light in the world. We cannot do that if all we do is sit and wait. Brothers and sisters, let us heed the words of the apostle. He did not run in vain, neither has he labored in vain. We shall be the light, for it is God that worketh within us, that we may do his will. Glory to Jesus Christ.